Frany, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, today we will be talking about your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum story. I think it's better if we get started with your pregnancy because I think that's where you had the first symptoms.
Right. Well, yeah, I developed several symptoms in my pregnancy, and one of which was anxiety, pseudo-dementia, and some others, but I think these are the most relevant right now. Yeah, and the anxiety, at some point it got really bad, and but I didn't seek help. I just hoped that it would go away.
Right.
And yeah, until at the later point where I couldn't go on anymore.
And you also mentioned dementia. Can you talk more about that? Because we never think about dementia being during pregnancy.
Yeah, true. So it started as being forgetful, and I was like my mental capacity was just not very good anymore. I was still working at this point, and I felt like I couldn't fulfill, because I'm a PhD student, so I have to use my brain. And at some point I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And then there were...
When you say anxiety, what did it feel like?
Very, very scared, like panic. I was panicking, especially, I think men need scared.
Men?
Yeah.
You mean like random outside in the street?
Anyone. The worst was my husband, because he was there. So I mostly got scared of him. But
were you scared of him before pregnancy?
No.
Never.
No,
you always
never.
felt safe.
Yeah, of course. No, but I never had this before, and it was completely not his fault. So it was, I knew rationally it was something in me that was wrong. But in the situation, like, the emotions are not rational, right? It's like my heart started racing, sweating. I couldn't look in his eyes. I tried to avoid his eyes because I got so scared. And I told you before that we watched a scary movie, and I would always imagine what happened in this movie.
So during your pregnancy, you're already feeling anxiety and a little bit you're forgetful, and you couldn't work as a student anymore. You were doing a PhD.
Yeah.
And then so at what point did you go to watch this horror movie?
I was probably 1 month pregnant.
Okay, so you were 1 month pregnant, and talk about that. You didn't know it was going to be a horror movie?
No, I hate this kind of movies, but so he doesn't speak German well enough or understand German well enough to follow a whole movie. So this is like a native speaker level, which he doesn't have. And we went to see another movie in English, which was sold out. So there was only one other option in English, and that was this scary movie. So we just went for it. We were like, we don't want to go home now, so let's just watch this one. And that was a bad decision. That was a really bad decision.
What movie was it?
Is it called The Smile or but it's definitely something with smile.
Did anything have to do with pregnancy or?
No.
Just separate issue.
Not at all. I think there's something like a demon haunting people, and it goes inside people, and then it has a very evil smile.
Oh, okay. And then that kind of made it worse because you already had anxiety, and it made it worse.
It made it much worse.
Wait, so you went there the first month of your pregnancy, but before seeing that movie, did you also were you also afraid of men, and did it start afterwards?
I think I probably have. I mean, we're women in this society, and we experience like harassment, abuse, or whatever. Like, I experienced this since I was maybe 12, I don't know. And I'm always aware that someone, let's say I'm walking around at night, I'm very aware that someone could come and hurt me if they wanted to, because I'm short, I'm small, I'm not very strong. So I think this was already somewhere in the back of my mind. And it just came out much stronger.
Oh yeah, because now you know you're pregnant, you know that you are vulnerable. Now you have the responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. I was also very worried about my baby. Like sometimes I would imagine someone kicking me down the stairs or something like that. Like anything bad that could happen, I would imagine this.
Okay, so you already had in the background the idea that men can hurt you.
Yeah.
And that got exaggerated, that got kind of inside, elevated that anxiety. And you were afraid of men, and then even including your husband. So how did you navigate during pregnancy this?
Well, we just tried to manage it at home, I think. I mean, he was very understanding, and he tried, like, for example, he wouldn't smile when I was there.
Oh my God, is it because of the movie?
Yeah. Like, because to me, I misinterpreted the smile, and it looked evil to me. And he tried to avoid this, which is nice of him, you know, like, it was pretty much the only thing he could do. And after the baby was born, it all went up more. So at some point I was like, I can't do this anymore, I need help.
But let's talk about birth first.
So it turns out that I react very sensitive to painkillers and to any kind of anesthesia. And medication didn't work on me. Like the laughing gas made me vomit. The epidural made me shake like uncontrollably, and I had no energy left. I was just so weak that I couldn't push anymore. So I asked them to turn it off, and they did this. But then I didn't have any painkillers. Any painkillers, yeah. And I had to go through it without painkillers. And the worst was because of the epidural, the process was slowed down. So the midwives gave me oxytocin, and I believe this was the stuff that was the most painful.
Why was it painful? Because
it's increasing the contractions, and it's making them worse.
It accelerates the whole process, so the labor felt even more painful.
Yeah. So I believe that's what happened, but also my bladder was full, and because the head was already blocking the exit, you know, I couldn't go and pee, and they tried to give me catheter.
Okay, yeah, I think
is that the word?
I think so. Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah, to get the urine out, but it didn't work. It was completely blocked from the head, and they went, okay, now you just have to go through it. You know,
did you feel like you wanted to actually pee?
No.
But how did you know that your bladder was full?
They told me. And they tried to get it out. And then later, when the baby was there, they checked how much it was, and they said it was 1.2 liters. So it was a lot, and I think it's dangerous. Like the bladder can rupture, you know, if it's too full. But it didn't happen. So.
Wow, this is the first time I'm hearing this,
really?
and I've had, I don't know, I think like 20 stories I covered, and this is the first time.
I mean, in the end, nothing happened, but I'm just wondering about the decisions. You know, they should be aware.
Okay. How was your the stay at the hospital?
So this hospital, I felt good there. I could ring the bell anytime, and they would come and, you know, check on me or on the baby, and it was not bad. It was okay.
And your baby was born healthy, and everything went well without any complications. So now you go back home after 3 days, I think.
Yeah.
At this point, are you having any symptoms, any anxiety?
Yeah, it didn't stop, so it was still there. What was actually the worst for me was the exhaustion. Because after I started breastfeeding, my body was already depleted, you know, from the pregnancy. And then you breastfeed a baby, and it needs so much milk. It doesn't eat anything else, right? So after like 3-4 months, I just couldn't. And my baby had colics, 3 months or maybe 4 months even colics. So he wouldn't stop crying. He wouldn't stop screaming.
So now you're at home, and your symptoms that you had during pregnancy are still going on.
Yeah.
And on top of that, now you have obviously exhaustion and depletion of your body from minerals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to look after my baby. My husband went back to work after 2 weeks, which was not long, but it was necessary financially, because as a student with a scholarship, I didn't get Elterngeld. So I had
so
only...
in Germany we have a benefit, child benefit, that is, well, no, not child, parents do get paid by their, I think insurance pays it or government pays it.
The state.
The state pays it for, I think, for a year, right?
Yeah,
60% of your salary.
14 months even.
14 months. Maximum it needs to be 60% of your salary, and then you get it for the first 14 months. And then the same can the father as well do it, so they can... I think the
parents can switch if they want.
Right.
He reduced his work hours to 60%, but we needed some money,
Yeah.
And I interrupted my scholarship, so I didn't get anything from there. I only got the minimum Elterngeld, which was 300. So he couldn't help much or do much, only after work, and I was pretty much alone with the baby all the time.
Was it home office, or he did?
No, he works on site.
Okay, so which means you're alone at home with one-on-one
most of the time.
And you had no help, no any support.
No, no. My parents don't live here. They live a little bit far in Cologne. But at some point I decided I can't do this alone. So I went to my parents' home with the baby. It was either that or my husband would have had to leave his job. Like these two options,
So describe what the situation was like. Why did you feel like you had to go and see your parents?
There was no energy. I was completely exhausted. I didn't sleep. I didn't have time to eat. My baby just wanted to be held at all times. He was pretty much living on top of me. And breastfeeding for hours, and then trying to make him sleep for hours, and he would just start crying, especially at night, and evening and night he cried the most. Yeah.
And at what months how old was he when you went to your parents' place?
3 months probably. And I stayed there for 3 months.
Okay.
And they were very helpful, so I'm entirely grateful for this, because really there's not much you can do. We asked for Haushaltshilfe.
Yeah, so the insurance pays for some help for new moms, new parents, and usually I think they help with cooking, and maybe what else do they do?
Any kind of chores around the house, and also childcare. So to me, the most important was the childcare. But the problem is they don't work in the night. They don't work in the early morning. They don't work in the evening. And then mostly when I finally went to sleep, they would ring the doorbell, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I have to get up. And some are motivated, some not so much, So we had one which pretty much didn't want to do anything, and she was just sitting there peeling a tangerine for me. And
so it could be like a little bit more stressful rather than help. You have to coordinate and manage the help.
We had 3 different people in 1 week, so I have to get up and tell them and show them how to do everything. So honestly, it was not very helpful.
So you get not one person for the whole period? You get random people sent to you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's because they have to manage very short notice. Like if someone is sick, they need help immediately. So they just turned out that we had 3 different people. And I just wanted to lay there, and rest. So but that's the only, I figured, because, there's a whole network of help you can ask for and such, and it looks good from the outside. But then when you're really in this situation and you're asking for help, it turns out the only people who actually do something are these Haushaltshilfe, the helpers, and everybody else is just to give you tips. So everybody else would be like a counselor or someone who, sometimes a doctor or a psychologist, child psychologist or something like that. But these were all additional appointments and additional stress for me. So yeah.
So it's kind of useless and actually a bit more like a work for you.
It was more work for me. It increased the workload. Every appointment was more work. And yeah.
So you're exhausted. On top of it, you have your anxiety and you had like panic attack and you have no time to sleep. You have no time to take care of yourself, to eat.
Zero.
You have one...
I lost a lot of weight even though I was breastfeeding. You should gain weight actually, right? I didn't.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so what happens? You get in touch with somebody, and then they reference you.
So I found someone called a family midwife. So she's not called a family. Her job is a family midwife, and they are experts in finding the right help for specific situations. And I recommend this to everybody who is, in a difficult situation. They can be very helpful. Just in my case, what I needed was medication and support, like someone who would do the childcare or chores at home. These two things.
Medication for what?
Well, firstly, for the anxiety. I don't know if any medication exists that could, help with exhaustion. I don't know.
Just sleep and food.
Yeah, but it didn't work. I mean, it was long, it was really long. I was even considering, what's it called, long COVID? They have, the people who suffer from long COVID sometimes also have this chronic fatigue kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Well, the family midwife, she found this hospital which was specialized in psychiatric cases, postpartum.
So why did she think that you need to go to a hospital that focuses on psychiatric cases?
Because of the anxiety and the dementia. The exhaustion, I don't know.
Did you see a doctor?
Well, I had my general practitioner, but she also didn't really know,
Were you diagnosed with postpartum depression at any point?
No, I didn't have a depression. But
so how did you find out that you have postpartum psychosis?
Well, I also use Google, and and I think that's pretty much the only diagnosis in question.
What's the difference between postpartum depression and psychosis?
Oh, well, I think most people probably know depression. So it's like mood swings and, you're sad most of the time.
You cannot get out of bed, you don't want to do anything, nothing can make you happy.
Yeah.
You're always kind of like in
that's also
a
very
numb state.
Very serious condition. But the psychosis is mostly about the anxiety and...
You're scared of something.
Panics. It also extended to my child once it was born. And I think that was one reason, like the doctors and also the midwife probably were worried for my child. Although I never did anything to him. Like when I get panic, I would put him down and I would distance myself. Like I would still think rationally.
So explain this. How does this work? For somebody who never experienced it, can you describe how
it feels?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like on one hand, you feel so much love for this child, but there's something inside that says, no, it's not a child. It's a demon or it's something evil, And like, when I say I was scared of my child, it's not true. Because I felt like it was something else. So I was scared of something else that was inside of him. Like,
do you think it's because of that movie? Did you?
Maybe, partly. partially.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so this fear would come all of a sudden? Any pattern?
There are triggers.
Triggers?
Yeah, there are some triggers. Like if he would stare at me, for example, like staring my eyes and saying,
"Am I doing it?" Sorry.
Sometimes, but it's okay now. I'm good now.
Okay, because I do that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's some kind of instinct.
Okay.
You don't have dogs, right?
No.
So if dogs like they stare at their rivals like this, and then this kind of thing happens to me.
Okay. So there was a pattern. So the trigger was that stares would trigger you.
Stares, and also when he would say something like die.
Who?
My child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he started talking, like babbling something, and something said dad, die, and staring at me at the same time.
Oh.
Like, is this normal? Something in my head went.
Okay, interesting. And then you would have a panic.
Yeah.
Okay, it was not just a thought. So usually you're like, you experience, I just had the thought, but then you move on. But this kind of took over you, this fear.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
And then you would put your baby down, and then you would wait, and then what would happen? Would it just go away, or?
Yeah, at some point I could distract myself, or I would call my husband, something like that, or talk to someone.
How often did it happen?
A lot.
Every day?
Yeah, several times a day.
Ooh.
A lot, yeah. Yeah, but as I said, that was not the worst symptom. Because also the doctors, they focus a lot on this, and they never address the exhaustion.
Because I think that I just recently read a book by Tom O'Neill, Chaos, and in that book he talks about this psychiatrist. I think his name was Dr. West, and he talks about how one of the things that he worked on is inducing psychotic break in his in patients. So it was like very, I think, under the cover kind of like experiments he did, which was non-ethical, and then I think they put stop on it. But one of the elements that he needed to induce psychotic break was sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation is one of the key things to induce a psychotic break. And I think sleep deprivation is also used for, like, when they torture prisoners, like, so the sleep deprivation is very key to, changing someone's mental health. So
I totally believe this.
And you were not sleeping well, you didn't eat well, you had no time for yourself, and no wonder that got exaggerated. So when you had this, you go tell your midwife, and then you go to this hospital, and then what happens?
Well, I arrived there, and I was so happy to get there, because I'm thinking, well, finally someone's going to help me, after I don't know how long. I was there for 4 weeks, and I didn't receive any help, any medical attention, actually. They gave me, so you have to know that my baby wasn't sleeping much at night. He would be up until 4 a.m. At this point, he was 6 months old. So the sleep patterns is not developed until now, right? So I had to be up to take care of him, because there's nobody else. I had to do it. So he wouldn't sleep until 4 a.m. And then in this hospital, you get a whole schedule, a whole timetable with appointments in the morning. Well, it starts with breakfast, and then you have therapy sessions. Then there's lunch, and then it continues in the afternoon. So it's like a work day. It's pretty much like a work day. You're taking care of your baby, and you're doing these therapy sessions at the same time. And I had to be up until 4 a.m. And then they would come and wake me up at 7:30.
I mean, if somebody woke me up, I would be so mad. I would be
I'm like, shit, now is the time that I can finally sleep. And they want me to go to this, but they were useless. The sessions, they were not useful for me.
What were they about? What was it about?
Well, for example, one was a group therapy, and you could talk about your problems with the therapists, the counselors, and the other patients. And it's nice to do this, you know. It's nice, but it didn't help me at all. My symptoms didn't go away from this, and it cost me so much because I didn't get sleep.
So those therapy sessions were all about sharing what you're feeling and talking, just like when you see a therapist.
No. So one was the group sessions, one was a single session with psychologist.
Again, talking.
Yeah, talking sessions. There was PICIP for the baby.
What is it?
PICIP.
What is that?
Prager Eltern-Kind-Programm.
Okay, but you have to be with your baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, something you have to do with your baby.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Yeah. There is something, what's it called? Ergotherapy.
What is that? Is it for your baby as well, I think?
No. It's without baby. You're pretty much doing some handicrafts, like using your hands, like making a basket or baking bread, something like that.
Wait a minute, but just all this sounds like activities for somebody who came to a resort, you know, when somebody who is already basic needs are met, somebody who would sleep,
exactly,
ate really well.
Thank you.
Let me go and talk to a psychologist, let me do like some basket knitting, but your basic needs were not met, which is sleeping. Somebody needed to take your baby so that you could sleep well and then eat well, and then maybe we could have moved on to other things, but it just makes no sense. So you are almost like being tortured then, because you haven't slept well, and then on top of it you have to do something. You have to cognitively speak, share, socialize with others, and then and also use your motoric, you were knitting something.
Yeah.
So at home at least you had your husband's help.
Yeah, exactly.
So nobody at any point offered you to take your baby?
Well, there's like a small daycare, but my child didn't want to stay there. So
How old was he at that time?
He was 6 months old, and he was in this phase where he didn't want anyone else.
Yes.
So I had him with me all the time in the sessions also. And
was there somebody like a nanny or somebody came into your room and said, hey, like, I'm gonna hold him near you, I will stay here, you eat something, or you take a nap?
No, that doesn't happen. No, just my husband came in the afternoon after work, and that was the time when I finally could sleep a little bit. But what they also did was they would open the door to my room every hour, night and day.
What?
And check on me. Yeah. So what I want to warn people about is they are not transparent in this clinic. They tell you things like, for example, I was told, so we want to be sure that you're okay, so someone's going to check on you, you know? What I didn't realize, they would open the door to my room every hour at night, even when I was sleeping.
Oh my God.
You know, I got these 3.5 hours, and they would open the door every time. And you know how a mother, like a new mother,
your instincts.
Right, you wake up from anything because you have to, because when your child is crying, or, you know, you have to wake up, you have to be up. So I would wake up every single time they opened the door. And I had to breastfeed also, you know, in these 3.5 hours.
But did you tell them that you're not getting enough sleep?
Of course I did. Of course I did.
And they just ignored it.
They didn't care. They couldn't.
But like Amy, I'm just thinking, like, I'm not a nurse. I don't have any medical background, but not an expert in anything. But like, even I know that sleep is the most important thing for mental health.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I wish you would be the doctor in this hospital. I don't know.
So you stayed there for almost a month at that point, 4 weeks.
I wanted to leave like after the first week.
Really?
But
why didn't you leave?
Because I was desperate. And I had hope that they would help me at some point, you know. I felt like if I just went through all this, maybe at some point they would give me the right medication. But it didn't happen. I stayed as long as I could, and I was completely wrecked, and then I released myself. No, what's the word? Discharge. I discharged myself. Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that they didn't want to let you leave?
No, they got angry. Some of the nurses were upset.
Because you wanted to leave?
Yeah. I think it was a weekend. and the doctors were not there. There was like a substitute doctor, not a substitute, just a doctor from a different section of the hospital. And she said, well, I don't know your case. I don't know anything here. You should wait until the next morning. And I'm like, I can't. I know they're going to wake me up again. And I need to sleep. I have to go home now. And I just went. And yeah, what they did was calling me a lot the next day. That's also something they said, oh, give us your phone number so we can check on you if you're okay. But what they actually do is pressure you,
To do what?
To come back to the hospital.
To come back?
Yeah. They also did this with some other patients who didn't want to come back.
But why do they want you to come back? Because they're not doing, at this point, you're not sleeping enough. Did you tell them that it's not helping, that did nothing changed, maybe even getting worse?
Of course, yeah.
And they didn't change their approach at all?
No, they didn't want to adjust anything.
But if there's no improvement, why would they want to keep you there?
I don't know.
Who's paying for this hospital at this point? Are you paying out of your pocket?
The insurance. No. I mean, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit, but not much. But mostly the insurance. Yeah. I don't know the motivation behind this.
Okay. So I mean, obviously, I understand that they might have, you had some concerns that, because you usually postpartum psychosis or depression, that there might be some harm to the baby. So I understand that from that point of view. But I don't understand that they were not helpful at all.
They were not, and they were actually also waking up my baby.
Why?
Yeah, not on purpose, just whenever they opened the door, they would barge in, and he woke up, and he woke up crying every morning.
So they would just open the door quietly and then close? How did it work? Well, there are different people working there, so everybody has a different style, But yeah, at night they would just look inside and then, check if we're okay or not, but which is ridiculous, or whatever. Then they would close the door, but I heard it, and my child also heard it, and we woke up every single time. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to forget to mention two things. One is they did a drug test on me without consent. What is that?
A drug test.
Oh.
Yeah. They told me it's just some standard blood work. So they never mentioned the chemistry, and only because I asked to see the results, I saw that they did this.
That they checked for drugs?
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of drugs. I don't really know.
Okay, but they need to get your consent, right, to do drug tests?
I'm not sure about this. If it was legal or not, I don't know. I just know it was not ethical. Like, you should inform someone first.
Okay, yeah, at least tell them that we will be checking this and this and that. But instead of saying it's just a standard blood test. Standard blood test. Okay.
Exactly.
I don't think
standard where? This never happened before at my general practitioner.
Yeah.
Maybe standard for them. Yeah, but I think it should be. Yeah, people should be informed. I also complained about this. And mind you, it was all negative. I don't do any kind of drugs.
I didn't have any doubts.
And the second thing was they put the curfew on me, which I also didn't agree to. Oh, and that was the 1 hour thing. So that's what I feel like is like really, behind my back. This 1 hour thing means, so they said they're going to check on me every hour, right? So it means I can't be away from my room for more than 1 hour.
Why?
And they failed to mention this detail. It's a very important detail because sometimes I want to go take stuff from my home, or I want to go buy food for my child or whatever. But they're like, no, you have to be here. We have to see you every hour,
That's a bit restrictive, and just you're already stressed, and then why do you need an extra?
I was okay walking around, being on my own before this. I didn't need anyone to. I think it's for insurance reasons, probably.
Yeah, but also you feel like you're in a prison now.
Yeah. And if I wouldn't be back after 1 hour, they would call me on my phone and pressure me, And I would have not agreed to this
if you knew in advance.
Yeah, definitely not.
And then once you discharged yourself, you went back home. You also mentioned that they wrote a letter to someone?
Yeah. So I didn't want to talk to them. They called my phone. I didn't answer. And apparently they decided they had to do something about this. And they wrote to, what's it called? Sozialpsychiatrischer Dienst.
Social
you want me to translate
psychiatric service, I guess. Yeah, I'll add.
Okay. So this service also wrote me an invitation to make an appointment with them and talk about something. And I'm like, no more appointments. I had so many appointments. I just need to sleep and eat and rest, you know. So I thought an invitation is something optional. Soon I realized it is not. If any office or any institution in Germany sends you an invitation, it's mandatory. So there are consequences if you don't go. I ignored it, and they in turn informed the youth welfare services, who then also sent me an invitation. And yeah, we got in trouble with them because of this stupid hospital, because I discharged myself.
So what did they say?
They asked about my health. They were mostly interested in the anxiety thing, like the other symptoms were not mentioned much. So I also, okay, sometimes I'm a little bit too positive or optimistic, or maybe naive, you could say, because I went there thinking they just want to help us, you know? That's what they want. They want the best for the children. No. No. What they wanted to do was controlling us, finding, like, they already made decisions about us without seeing us, even a single time. Like, they never met me, they never met my child. They only had this letter from the hospital, or from this service. And they already decided, so what I learned is there are 3 levels, how they categorize cases. And one is the everything is still okay case, but they're asking for help. The second is maybe something bad could happen. And the third is if already something happened to the children. So without knowing anything except what the hospital said, they already categorized our case in the second category, or classified it. Which means that it's not optional anymore. They can force you to do things. They can even threaten you with legal consequences, family court, if you don't, if you don't agree, if you don't do what they want. So
what do they want?
Oh, so there's something called Familienhilfe. So these people are social pedagogues. I also didn't know, how is this Familienhilfe, who's a pedagogue, not a medical doctor, because my problem was a medical problem. I didn't know how they're going to help us. I don't think they can. We didn't have pedagogic issues,
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this, and then later on I realized, okay, this is some kind of control, They want to send someone to your home to check on you, like what you're doing, how you're treating your child, or something like that. Okay. Although there was no reason for them to do this. Like, nobody ever observed anything. Even our family midwife told them, hey, I've been coming to this family every week for I don't know how many months now. And she told them that nothing ever happened, it's not necessary. So only thanks to our midwife, they eventually dropped the case. But it was very close call, And I also realized that parents in front of this youth welfare service they have a lot of prejudice against parents. So you're the least reliable person. They will not believe the things you tell them. Probably also the least reasonable person, like in their mind, you know. And I told them the whole story with the hospital and why I left, why I discharged myself. And I thought, okay, now they understand, you know, and they would even go to this hospital and check there, you know, what are you doing with the patients? No, that never happened. Because yeah.
So it looks like you recognize that something is happening to you and that's not normal. And you actively, from what you're telling me, you actively sought out help.
Yeah.
So you were calling midwives, your doctor, you wanted help, and you even went to the hospital thinking that it's going to help. And then with this youth welfare office, they sent somebody. You were also helpful that how they can help you. But in none of these options, there was nobody who actually were able to help.
Exactly.
Nobody. There was just literally nobody. And there are so many more women, not only in Germany, but I think in most of the Western world, where women are left alone with their babies and there's no support. I think this is very common. I mean, I think in other parts of the world, it's more like a community-based, where big families, they can help each other out. I think that's why they say it takes a village to raise a child, right? Because it definitely takes a village.
This is something I understand now.
So it's very, the whole system doesn't sound like there's a lot of money invested in it, because insurance is paying it, state sponsored. There are these institutions in place, but none of them actually addresses the real problem, which is let the mother sleep, let the mother eat,
sleep and
eat. And once the basic needs are met, then let's look at it. Then let's see if they need a psychologist, if they need a pedagogical intervention or whatever. But they didn't check and helped with what you needed, but instead they made it worse. But I think it's just a bureaucratic process at the moment. And I mean, they're like, okay, we're doing what we're told to do, but there's no one who's stepping in and saying, hey, this makes no sense, let's change it.
Yeah, exactly. So this last point you mentioned, I was also thinking, hey, there's so many people working in this hospital and they all saw what was going on. The nurses, I know who gave the orders, you know, is the head of the unit, probably, but everybody else followed. And there was nobody who said, hey, let this lady sleep a little bit, you know? Like, they would just wake me up, how they are told.
This is horrible. I think like it's actually in prisons, when they want to torture somebody, that's what they do. They wake people up at night in the middle. It's very well known.
It's definitely
method.
Yeah, it's torture, I can tell you. And it's not good for your mental state. Like,
it makes it worse.
Yeah.
And you already had an underlying anxiety which just got exaggerated, and now again this, instead of it's so absurd. Like I feel frustrated that this is happening. So what is where are you now? When did your anxiety go away? Oh, sorry, when did things get better?
So thanks for asking. I'm much better now after weaning my baby. So when I stopped breastfeeding, I guess something happened in my body, like hormones changed or whatever. But I'm good now.
You breastfed for 1.5 years. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you stop earlier?
I was thinking about it. I couldn't be sure that this is going to solve my problem, so I wasn't. It was my hope, but I wasn't sure, right? And I also know that it's the best for the baby, and I wanted the best for my baby, and yeah, so I breastfed until I couldn't. 1.5
years is a really good amount of time, and breastfeeding is very good. So yeah, you have your baby is
I'm
lucky.
proud of myself.
Yeah, it's not an easy job because you feel stressed out. Like, I have to feed my baby. If somebody depends on you, that's an extra stress that I think we don't really talk about. But breastfeeding, you just immediately feel like, oh my God, I am the food source, and without me, my baby is gonna be hungry, or the stress is tremendous for breastfeeding.
Yeah,
I think
it depends so much on the mother.
Yeah,
right? You can't be away from your child for any amount of time.
Yeah, because you're the main food source, especially for the first 6 months. Okay, so now you're feeling better, and those panic attacks went away completely.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I had one. I still remember like all the things I used to imagine, but it's like a vague memory now. so it doesn't bother me much. The exhaustion is gone. The dementia, I'm completely focused on my work now, and I think I'm even working better than before.
So did it then change just by time?
Yeah.
No medication or anything? You didn't get any extra help? Nothing changed?
They didn't, so that's also some funny story. In the hospital, they offered me something called quetiapine. And this, so I can do a little bit of research on my phone, right? Even though I had a lot of stuff to do. But I did, and I found that this is also used off-label as a sleep medication, so it makes you sleepy.
Oh, is it like a sedative kind of a thing?
Yeah.
So they offered you at the hospital sedative?
Yeah. And
oh
I'm
my
like,
God,
why?
isn't it dangerous when you have a baby to look after?
Exactly. I asked them, so if I fall asleep with this and I can't wake up, who's going to take care of my child? And there was no answer. They just looked at me like this.
Oh my God, this is dangerous.
That's so stupid.
I actually, yeah, I remember I had some kind of like a rash, and they actually had to take kind of like something that had sedative effect. I mean, I remember that the state I was after taking that pill, and having a newborn, like a child next to me, being in that state was not a good idea, because I was extremely sleepy. And how would I
had to take this with after you gave birth?
No, it was when my kids were older, but I had an allergy, like a rash, and they prescribed this. So I know how it feels like. I know how taking a sedative feels like. So if you had that, it would just probably make the whole thing worse.
Yeah.
If it was a sedative.
For sure. I don't understand who came up with this idea. It was like a genius plan, you know.
Okay.
I don't know. But then later I thought maybe there is nothing for my specific case. Like you need something that can be used while you're breastfeeding, that doesn't make you sleepy, and that is also effective enough to treat the symptoms. Maybe there's just nothing. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. That's also something, they didn't give me any information, you know. I was thinking the doctor's going to tell you, okay, we have this, and you can, you know, pick one. No, this never happened.
Right, and you were mainly looking for your panic attacks to stop.
The panic attacks, and also something from my exhaustion. Like, I don't know what could help other than sleeping and eating, you know. But I felt like it would never go away.
So you wanted something to give you energy, and the panic attacks stop. Anything else?
Yeah, and the dementia. So these were the three.
How did dementia feel like? I don't think I can.
For example, I went to the train station and I didn't know which train I had to take. I was confused. Like I needed minutes to figure out how to go home. You know, even this was like, I think 1 or 2 stops from my home.
You have taken the road already before?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, interesting. So you already have traveled through the same
many times.
But you were lost because you couldn't...
I mean, I was not completely lost, just for a few minutes. I couldn't, my brain didn't work so quickly. So the train was gone after. I'm like, oh, okay, I had to take this one. You know, or I did once an eye test. And you know, they show you numbers and letters, and for a moment I didn't know if it was a 3 or an E. You know, one is in this side and one is on this side.
Oh, okay. Cognition. You had some kind of like a problem with your cognitive. Oh, okay.
And I was not working at this point anyways, but I was like, shit, how can I resume my work? You know, with this condition, it's not possible.
So then somehow as your baby grew older and he started sleeping better and you also started sleeping, how did that change?
So I discharged myself when he was 7 months old, and I was just at home then. My husband, he was supportive, very supportive. He was really good. He's like, okay, we're going to go through this together. You don't need them. You don't need anyone. Don't call anyone more. You tried everything. And with the time, it just got better step by step. And then I stopped breastfeeding at some point. Oh, my mom was also very supportive. yeah, and then it changed.
Okay. I'm really glad that things are, back to normal and you're feeling better, and the hardest part is over. By the way, you mentioned that. Can you shortly talk about that as well? You're somebody you knew?
Yeah. Well, there were 8, I think in total 8 mothers. And most of them probably had a postpartum depression. And one was not like a typical case. So the doctors had a hard time figuring out her problems. They gave her, so the bad thing or the worst they did was they gave her some kind of medication in the beginning, and it's something that has a addiction potential, and they didn't want to let her leave with this medication. So they put her on a cold, how to say this, like a withdrawal.
They just stopped giving her medication, or
pretty much they try to get her away from this medicine.
Maybe like decreasing the dosages, right? Slowly.
Yeah. But not slowly. Like within 2 weeks they wanted to stop it. And they're like, you would think maybe they could extend the stay until, until it's good. But they didn't. They're like, oh, your time is over. You have to leave in 2 weeks. Now we stop with this medicine.
But interesting, but you mentioned that they want people to come back and stay longer, but why in her case they were rushing to get her out?
I think probably their insurance pays only for so long. And then,
so she stayed, okay.
She was there for, I think, 2 months.
Oh, then insurance only pays for 2 months, and maybe they wanted you back because you didn't stay maximum amount that you could, and she stayed the maximum amount she could, and then they wanted her out. Is that what you're saying?
So definitely she wanted her out because her time was over. She was not better. Like you would think they release patients when they're better, right? When they improve, but she was not. So in my case, I don't know why because there are many people waiting. They have a whole waiting list. I don't know why they try to keep me there. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, yeah.
So in her case, they abruptly stopped that medication without properly going over the withdrawal stage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And she also needed something. She was desperate. She needed some kind of medication, And I think after she went home, she went to her other doctor, and he went like, oh girl, you need medicine, your condition is so bad, like I have to give you something. And they gave her something else, and then it got better. But I just remember she also said that this whole therapy program was too much. You're doing a full-time job taking care of your child. It's not even one, it's like 2 full-time jobs, maybe 3. One full-time job is 8 hours. So caring for a baby is almost 24 hours. However, she also told them it's too much, and she didn't want to come, and they put the blame on her, saying like, you're not working with us properly, you're disturbing the process or something like that. And with me, it was the other way around. They're like, oh, you don't look desperate enough. Like you look fine, We don't see that anything is bad with you. Anything is wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, but in your case, it was just, it turns out you just needed some sleep and some food.
Sleep, food? No, I probably would have needed medicine also, but...
they just couldn't find the proper medicine, or they just didn't want to give you the medicine?
I think I should have stopped breastfeeding first, which they also didn't really support you with this, They just tell you, okay, stop breastfeeding. Then you can have something. And then turned out I just needed to stop breastfeeding, and my symptoms went away by themselves. So
okay,
I didn't need anything.
Interesting.
Actually. Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, I had support. I went to my parents' place. Husband was there after work. So I'm not. Luckily, I was not alone completely. And I really feel for all the single mothers or single parents who are alone every day. So yeah, but in this hospital, they didn't really help you. I mean, they can't. It's not. I'm not saying. I don't want to blame any nurses. They have a lot of work. You know, they're so busy. Just imagine there. I think at night there were like 2 nurses, and there were 8 mothers on one side with 8 children, and then on the other side another the patients without children. So it's just way too much work. They can't help you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think like if for this case or your friend's case that you mentioned, I think it's the wrong place. That's the deduction that I can make, because that's not the proper. That's not. They're not addressing the issue. They were not helpful. So
it was definitely the wrong place for her, as it was for me. Yeah. I'm not saying for everybody. If you fit in this system they have, and if you're easy to diagnose, maybe you could benefit from a stay there. I wouldn't risk it though. Yeah.
So for somebody who's having a psychotic break, what is it? What you call it?
I don't know.
Okay. So the panic attacks, right? The panic attacks, having fear. What would you recommend? What would you advise?
I would advise them to stop breastfeeding and take medication, and do this with a doctor you trust, or someone who is actually helpful. Yeah, and who doesn't take months to diagnose you, you know. And then, I mean, even if they don't diagnose you exactly, they can still give you something, you know. They should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, obviously breastfeeding is very important, but your child's safety and life is way more important.
And your own also.
And your own, of course.
Yeah.
So yes, it's. I think immediately you need to find a doctor. And one of the things that I usually recommend on my channel is, before you give birth, maybe even before getting pregnant, find the doctor. Just in case, have that number.
That's a good idea.
Find the doctor that you trust, that you know others already got help, who can diagnose you, who can help you, who's going to put your and your baby's life first, right? If you have to stop breastfeeding, by the way, I'm pro breastfeeding, but if that's going to help, it's very scary. What you just described, the panic attacks you described, is extremely scary, and thank God that nothing happened, but that's very, very scary situation, and you need to have somebody, because as you said, you had no idea this was going to happen to you, because there's no way of telling. Even if you think, oh, I'm going to be fine, you cannot know.
No.
Exactly. This can happen to anybody.
It can. Like, it's probably something that runs in the family, or I don't know, but we never know. We don't know everything that's in our family, right? In the genes, so yeah. But that's a good idea, actually. Try to find a doctor first.
So that you can give a call immediately. Yeah, if something happens, because finding a doctor takes energy, takes persistence, time.
And maybe even someone who can help with the weaning if you need to. Because that was something that stopped me, was because I felt like I'm taking away something from my baby, and I didn't want to do this to him. And he was also very demanding. Like, he's an expressive child, you know, and the weaning was not easy. It requires additional energy. If you don't have that at this point, I don't know. I don't know how it could proceed. Maybe the midwife could help, you know, the family midwife also.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's very, very important that we talk about this, and hopefully this can help someone out there.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luisa.